Hello and welcome to my channel. Hi, I'm Wendy Haney. Today I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful maple leaf quilt block. There are plenty of different varieties of designs out there with lots of squares and everything else. But you know what I really liked about this one is it had a stem and it had this cool pointed corner up here. I really kind of liked that instead of just, a half square triangle or something. So, interesting thing is, when I found it online, the pattern they had this block in a paper piecing. I like paper piecing, okay? But for a video, then that would mean I need to get you the paper piecing and do all that. And you know what? I didn't want to do that. So, I'm a techie geek. I like math. So I figured out how to do this and show you how to do this without paper piecing. Yay me! Lucky you. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. As you can see here, this is the first one I did, and it's got like our fall colors and stuff because I pulled it from, my scrap bin and whatever. But then I saw somewhere that somebody did on Pinterest blocks with all sorts of bright, fun colors. And I'm like, ooh, I really like that. And then I was shopping with a friend, and I didn't need any fabric, but well, you know how that works. And I came across this yummy fabric. It's got like pretty colors in the background and I don't know what you'd call it. Screen printed little maple leaves all over it. It's like, oh, that'd be really, really pretty on the background. And then, I found this fat quarter collection of all of these yummy, yummy colors. Look at that. Look at how cool that's gonna go. So this is what we're working with. Yep, this is what we're working with. So we are going to make this, put this back there, and it is not overly complicated. What you need of your, and here's my leaf done in the background and the blue, and that's what we're gonna use for this video. So what we're gonna need is a variety of squares and triangles. So for our background, we're gonna need 6. Oh, by the way, this is a 10.5 unfinished block. So a 10-inch finished block. I will have a link below, or actually no, well, eventually I'll have a link below, but for now you'll probably have to email me to request the template for this. And in there, I hope to have some other sizes for you to do as well. But right now we've got a 10.5 inch unfinished. So we're gonna need 6 2.5 inch squares of our background, 2 2.5 inch by 4.5 inch rectangles. We're going to need, oh, I was gonna say, I lost it. 2 4-inch squares of our background. And for our corner, and this one's gonna be a little bit different size. I decided I'm making these a little bit bigger than you might need, because when I did it, it was like, ooh, I could make it a little more accurate if I had a little more wiggle room. So that's what I'm doing for you, giving you a little more wiggle room. You could play with it. These are 2.5 by 5.75. You might be able to get by with 2.5 by 5.5. So you do you and play with it. These are probably not even trimmed down to 2.5. They were kind of left over, okay? Because we're going to kind of fake paper piecing with measured squares, okay? That's what you need for your background. Now, for your leaf, to go with your 2.5 by 5.75 inch background rectangles here to make our corner point of our leaf, you need a 4.75 square. As you can see, I did leave some of the bias edge, whatever, sorry, having a hard time with it right now, because I know I'm going to trim that off and I didn't want to waste any more fabric. So once again, you could maybe get by with a 4.5, but then you'd have to be very, very precise with your measurements as I'm showing. So I decided to go 4.75 on this square. Okay, then you need a 2.5 by 6.5. You need just one, and you need 5 2.5 by 4.5 inch strips of your leaf. So that gets you what you need to do this 10.5 inch block. So now let's figure out what we need to do to put them together to make this beautiful leaf block. And oops, a piece got lost. You also need a 4.5 inch square of your leaf fabric to make the stem. Okay, so now you know what you need to cut out. We're going to set those all aside, and we're going to do our stem first. So this is the block we're going to make first. Okay, you're going to start with that, and you're going to grab your two 4-inch squares of your background and your 4.5 inch square of your leaf fabric. Now, I just use a pencil right now. It's the finest thing, and we're going to be stitching on our line anyway, so it's going to get done. So draw a line corner to corner on the backs of your background fabric. Okay, you're going to do that on both of them. I always have to be careful so I don't get my fabric under there squeezing. Now, here's a trick that you might have seen me do on another video. What we're going to do is we're going to put these on this square here, and we're going to stitch on the line. And then you're going to trim a 1/4 inch away, and you're going, wow, that's a lot of wasted fabric. Yeah, but guess what you can do? And in this case, I like to do that because these are big chunks left over. So I am actually going to draw another line that's a 1/2 inch away from the first line I drew. Yep. Okay, so now I've got my line corner to corner, and then another line a 1/2 inch away. I am going to stitch on both lines because guess what's going to happen when I'm done? I'm going to cut in between, and I have this on this to make my stem, but then I've magically created another 1/2 square triangle with what would be considered waste fabric. And you know what? In this case, it makes a decent size 1/2 square triangle that's worth, in my opinion, the extra time it takes to draw this line. So just a thought there. Okay, so in this case, we're going to put this on there. Pins. And in this case, now if you decided to do what I'm doing, you're going to stitch on both lines. If you decided, whatever, I'm not going to deal with that, then you're just going to stitch on the one. We're going to do that. And here we go. And as I said, I've got both my lines stitched. If you have just one, you're going to cut a 1/4 inch to the outside, whacking off that corner, and there you go. We're going to finger press this. Now, with this said, we are going to trim these up. So when I do these kind of things, I always keep my stitch, just a thread length or so on the inside of the line. So towards the direction you're going to be cutting. So we're going to do this. And look at this. This is a significant 1/2 square triangle that you've got left over. Let's see how much we're going to get that. Excuse me. Allergies in Tennessee this time of year really bite. Yeah, you could end up with a 3-inch 1/2 square triangle when you're done. You know, in my book, I'm going to save that. So there's 2 of those that you're going to be able to do. Okay, so in this case right now, I'm going to just leave this finger pressed, and you're going to take your other background fabric that you also marked, and this time you're going to put it on the other corner. Yep, and you're gonna do exactly what you did before. Making sure when you do this that you get this other piece of fabric folded over and out of your way. Otherwise, you're gonna be very, very unhappy. Okay, right sides together. Go and stitch on your line or your lines. I'm gonna go do that and then trim it and press them so that I can come back and show you how we're gonna square this up. And there we have it. In this case, I pressed to the inside, my darker color, and I apologize, I was wrong. This is not a square we trim up. But depending on how things went on, if you feel like it's just slightly off or whatever, just get your ruler out and trim that up to a 4.5 inch square. These seams here are not going to be matched up with anything else. So, a little bit of wiggle room there you've got. And then there are my 3 half square triangles that I don't need, that I'm gonna set aside and put them in my little bin of blocks that are already made in case I wanna do something scrappy sometime. Okay, so now we've got our stem done. Now we're gonna work on all of our leaves except our 1 point corner. So let's grab your 2.5 by 4.5 inch leaf fabric, your 2.5 by 6.5 inch, and those 6 2.5 inch squares. Okay, first thing you're gonna do is go through all of those 2.5 inch squares and draw a line corner to corner. Once again, this is going to be your stitch line. Now, if you want to do the same thing you did with the stem and do a 1/2 inch away, because we're going to lop off this side so that you get another half square triangle, you go right ahead. I did it the first time I made this block and went, oh, geez, I think we get like an inch half square triangle when we're done. And I'm like, I'm not dealing with that. So I'm just lopping off the corner and I'm not adding that extra line there. So you do you. Now we've got those all marked. Now you're gonna wanna look at your template, because the important thing to note is you can't just throw these on here all the same direction or you're going to be very unhappy. The direction of your line, whether it's left to right or right to left, is important. So look at your template to see. If you look here, this is what we're doing. So it's important that you have 2 of them that are done the opposite direction for this, and 2 that are done the opposite direction over here. And we got an odd duck over here and an odd duck over there. So look at your template and pay attention. Okay, let me put that over there so I can see it. So we're gonna have 2 of them that are going to be 2 sets that are going to be the same, because you want one to be like that and the other to be like this. Yeah, there you go. So you want those to match up like that. So you're going to want to have one that's lower left to upper right, and the other one is upper left to lower right. So if you just lay them out so you've got a V when it comes to your lines there, and you're going to need 2 of them that are like that. So let me grab this. This is why it's beneficial to lay these out and mark your lines. Okay, so this is going to take care of the 2 sets that we're going to put together. I'm going to set those aside so I can pin them and not lose them. Okay, then we have this long one that comes from the middle down to the bottom. And in this case, we need this to look like this. So the long, so this is your 2.5 by 6.5. This one is going to go from your lower right to your upper left, okay? I'm going to pin that so I don't lose track of that because I did this wrong the last one I did. And then you have one more that's hanging off over here, and it's not going to be matching to anything else. And it needs to look like this when we're done. So in this case, because of the way I have it laid out, and what I'm doing is I'm laying out the strip exactly the way it looks on my template. It makes it easier for me to make sure I'm aligning things right. So this here is this one here. So when I get done, I'm doing upper left to lower right, and when I fold that down, I go, yep, it's right. I had fun with this the last time. I thought I had it so good, and then I got 2 of them I had to rip out. Now, with that said, I would suggest after you stitch them, finger press them, lay them out, make sure you have it right before you whack off those corners, because otherwise, once you whack off a corner, you can't put it back on, and then you got to go waste fabric and create another one. Okay, so take all of these rectangles and our 2.5-inch squares and go stitch on the line, and then you're going to press them. Well, actually, then you're going to cut off a 1/4 inch from your seam towards the outside corner and press them. And then we'll have all those done. Okay, we have all of our rectangles done with our corner squares tacked on them. What I did is after I had them stitched, I finger pressed a little, or at least laid them out so that I knew I had the angles right. Then I went and cut off a 1/4 inch from the seam, got all those little scrappy triangles, and then I pressed. I set my 2 pairs that were important that we knew were going to go together next to each other, and I pressed one towards the light and one towards the dark, therefore eliminating some bulk. When we put these 2 together, our seams will nest there. So that was important on there. These, we are not matching seams anywhere for these, so I pressed these to my dark, whichever that is for you. With these, if you also want to press them open, that would be fine also. Not something we traditionally do in quilting, but sometimes I've discovered with a block, hey, pressing open just is the better situation to eliminate some bulk. We're going to set these aside for now. And let's attack our corner square here. Now this is the one that traditionally, the way it looks, you would do paper piecing with it. Didn't want to deal with paper piecing. So I took some time to figure out some measurements. As I said, you could do this with a 4.5-inch square and 2.5 by 5.5-inch strips. But when I did that, I felt that I wanted a little more wiggle room so I could get my angle for my point a little more accurate. So that's what I'm doing. 4.75-inch square and 2.5 by 5.75. Or I know these are wider than 2.5 because they were the strips that were there and I just used them, because it doesn't matter. We're kind of faking it like paper piecing, and we're going to trim it up when we're done anyway. Okay, so as I said, I left the edge there, the salvage, that's the word I was looking for. I left the salvage there because it is less than 1/4 inch. I know I'm going to trim it anyway. Actually, it really doesn't matter what side you do this on. It might be, in this case, I have a dark. It's probably easier for me to see my markings if I mark on the back. What we're going to do is, up here in the upper right corner, we want to know 1/4 inch down and 1/4 inch over. So in that case, for me, simplest thing is to put my ruler on here, and look at there, 1/4 inch in, 1/4 inch out. I've got a little square. So I'm going to just mark that there. And these are going to help with our cutting. So if you want to use a black marker or something to make it easy to see, whatever. So upper right corner, I now have a 1/4 inch down and a 1/4 inch in. Over here, I want to go over 2 3/8 of an inch. Yep, I know, kind of an odd number. Mark that. So 2 3/4 inch in and 2 3/8. Not 2, yeah, don't do 2 3/4. 2 3/8, not quite 1/2 inch. And with that said, it's not the end of the world if this is slightly different, because once again, you're not going to be matching seams over here. These are to help with cutting. Okay, 2 3/8 inch over, 2 3/8 inch up. You got a 1/4 inch down and a 1/4 inch over. Those are your lines to connect the dots, so to speak, and cut. So, put your ruler on both of your lines, a 1/4 inch down, 2 3/8 inch over. And then do it again. Here's your 1/4 inch over. And as you can see, this is probably why I'm giving you a little, there you go. So you can throw these in your scrap bin. Those things are really odd like that. I throw them in a bucket of just little scraps and stuff because I do little applique once in a while for mug rugs, and I'm looking for, oh, that just perfect color for that itty bitty applique. That bin is handy for that. Okay, there we go. This is our leaf. Now, grab those other rectangles, and what we're gonna do is kind of sort of like paper piecing. In this case, put your leaf on top. I like putting the leaf on top, and I found that make sure you put the wider, the fatter end of your leaf at the bottom end of your rectangle. It doesn't need to be all the way down there because you're going to trim it off anyway, but you want more of your background fabric on that rectangle up here in the corner. Okay, so that is what we're gonna do. I like to pin this. And now you're gonna take that to the sewing machine and stitch a 1/4 inch in. So you should end up right in the corner there of your leaf fabric with your seam. 1/4 inch, okay? Okay, I have that done. And I was wrong. Because of this angle, you won't necessarily be right in the corner there with your 1/4 inch seam. And that's okay, because that's why I'm giving you these blocks and squares that are about is a 1/4 inch bigger than you need, so we can trim them up. Okay, so don't worry too much about that. I then took this and I pressed this, pressing it to my background because I don't want a lot of bulk up there in the corner. Okay, you guessed it. We're gonna take this and we're gonna put it on the other rectangle. And once again, in this case, I want more of my background fabric up here at the point end of my leaf fabric and less of it down here at the bottom. And here is why. You're gonna see, because what we're gonna do with this is once we get the other one on here, we're gonna go up here and you're gonna trim it off. So most of this is gonna get trimmed off anyway. So that explains why we're positioning this and giving you more fabric at the top. Okay, so we're gonna pin that and take that, and in this case, I will probably, once again, press that to my background fabric so I don't have a bunch of bulk here in the top. And after pressing, that's what you have. Doesn't quite look like a square, does it? But because we made things oversized, now you can trim things up. The key thing is this needs to be cut for 4.5 inches. And you need that point to be at your 1/4 inch in from your 4.5 inch border. So I have my Omni grid that has my angle on it. And so I am going to position that corner, that 1/4 inch in, 1/4 inch up, right there in the middle. And then I'm going to keep my finger on that, and I'm going to just adjust the bottom here so that I have enough room to trim off. Get that up there a little bit further. Yeah, yep. Because you want that when you when you attach these blocks together, you want 1/4 inch so that that leaf goes right into your corner, but you don't chop it off. So you still have a pointy leaf corner and you haven't chopped it off. So get that 1/4 inch there and then come down here. Once again, we're not matching seams here, so it's not ultra important. You get those at an exact spot. More little fabric to go in my applique bin. Okay, and then turn it. And in this case now, because you've got it exact where you want there, you should be able to put your ruler on it and line up 4.5 all the way around. And trim it up. Yep, and I do still have a little bit of that salvage. Not the end of the world. I kind of wanted to optimize my fat quarter. Okay, there you go. Now you've got your pointed corner. Okay, these are going to go in that bin. All right, now we have all of the pieces to start putting things together. And we're going to do this in, well, in little components, because as you notice, we got lots of little things here. Once again, get your template out so you understand how this all should be laid out. Oh, yep, and now you're going to need to grab those last 2.5 by 4.5. Oops, I moved my thing. Yeah, 2.5 by 4.5 inch background rectangles. They're going to get added in there. And there, and our stem. Okay. There we go. So this is how it's going to be laid out. The easiest thing to do to start with is, what I would do is put these two together and get a block. These two together and get a block, because of the way we pressed them. That's important. That's one area you're going to need to match your seams to make that look good. So you're going to want to do that. Then, as long as you're going to the sewing machine with that, I would put this on that. So get your stem and your one rectangle, and get your pairs of your leaves done. Sew those together. We'll come back, figure out the right pressing for it, and then we'll attach our rectangles to these units. We can attach this to this. Oh, attach that to that. Yeah. So it's kind of the dance of what gets connected to what. So essentially what we're going to end up with is this side done and that side done, and then we can put those on top of each other and get the entire block done. Okay, I've got my 3 pieces there that I've stitched together, and I decided, after looking at it and trying to determine which side I wanted to press things, I actually did press the seams open. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to connect a whole bunch of blocks together, and I was a little concerned we could end up with a lot of bulk depending on the pressing. So I just decided to press things open, and that is giving me a lot less bulk in my corners. Okay, so as you can imagine now, we're going to put a few more things together. This middle piece can go over there on top of that and stitch your 1/4 inch. This little guy gets attached to that, and this one gets attached to that. Okay, you're going to stitch your 1/4 inches. Then we're going to do a little bit all at once. You're going to come back, and then those are going to be all set together, and those. So then, in that case, stitch your corner pieced leaf to there, okay? So essentially you want to get this row stitched together, and the same down here. Once you get this rectangle sewed over onto the stem piece, open it up, and then this goes there, as I said, and then this is going to be a whole unit, and you're going to stitch it there. So this will be pretty intuitive. As you get pieces done, you're going to want to end up with 2 rows. Gotcha? Gotcha. Okay, go get all of that sewn together, and then we've just got the last things, 2 rows together. And there we have our 2 rows. Now, as I got them done, I made sure I stitched everything together first, and then I looked at it and went, what's the best way to press and not get a lot of bulk? I decided I was going to do more pressing of my seams open. Not something I usually do, and if you're totally against it, well then don't. Totally up to you, but I think it's going to give me a lot less bulk with all of these corners and things, and easier to match things up and have less bulk once I start putting other blocks together. Now, with that said, I have this wonderful pressing stick. I got this at a quilt retreat. There was a mystery box, and it came with this fancy pressing stick. It's curved at the top, so it's really slick for laying your fabric over when you want to press your seams open. It helps press them so then you don't get any, well, it gets it pressed so everything's open. Handy dandy. Okay, now we're on to the end then. We have our 2 rows, and guess what? Well, you know what we need to do. We need to put them together. So, and in this case, we are, I don't think, nowhere else so far have we had to match seams. Today, right now, we do. You've got to match this seam and this seam, and that's it. So match those up, get those nice and looking good, pin and stitch your 1/4 inch. And there we have it, our finished maple leaf block. I'm just so tickled with the background, the bright colors. Yep. Okay, when I got done and then went to the ironing board to press it, it's like, I decided to go ahead and press seams open. Yep, it just seems to be giving me less bulk, and with everything else, and who knows how I'm going to connect these all later, I thought that was the safest bet. So look, I now have 2 of them in the bright blue. So exciting. Well, hopefully I will get to some of the other bright colors, because this could be a very fun quilt. But it is coming on the holiday season, and if you're like me, busy, busy, busy. So we shall see. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.